How does a single message in a group chat end with divorce papers on the courthouse steps? What happens when your own words become evidence, and the person you thought you could humiliate turns your performance into your undoing? I'm Lysandra Vyne, and I thought I was winning. I thought I was finally getting the attention I deserved, the excitement my marriage had been lacking for years. What I didn't realize was that every screenshot, every laugh, every moment I thought made me look powerful was actually building the case against me. The restaurant was perfect. Dim lighting, expensive wine, the kind of place that made you feel important just by being there. Our 7th wedding anniversary deserved something special, even if Jonah had been acting like a robot for months. He sat across from me in his predictable button-down shirt, methodically cutting his steak, while I tried to remember why I'd fallen for him in the first place. "The salmon's good," he said, not looking up. I scrolled through my phone, posting a quick selfie. The lighting was flattering, and I looked radiant in my new dress. Within seconds, hearts and fire emojis started appearing. "Could you put that away? It's our anniversary." I looked at my husband, really looked at him. When had those lines around his eyes gotten so deep? When had his shoulders started slumping like that? At 36, he looked like he'd given up on everything, including us. "I'm just sharing a nice moment," I said, but I set the phone down. "Remember when we used to talk about things? Real things?" Jonah finally met my eyes. "What do you want to talk about?" Before I could answer, I heard a familiar laugh from across the restaurant. Felix Marrow from work was being seated at a table with some friends, and when he spotted me, his face lit up with that charming smile that made everyone at the non-profit swoon. "Lysandra," he came over immediately, ignoring Jonah entirely. "You look absolutely stunning tonight." I felt myself flush with pleasure. This was how a man should react to seeing me. "Felix, what a surprise. This is my husband, Jonah." "Right, the math teacher." Felix's handshake was brief, dismissive. "Mind if I steal her for a quick photo? The lighting in here is incredible." Without waiting for an answer, he slipped his arm around my waist and pulled out his phone. I leaned into him, feeling alive for the first time in months. The camera clicked several times. "Beautiful," Felix murmured, his breath warm against my ear. "Send me these later?" I nodded, hyper-aware of Jonah's silence across the table. When Felix returned to his friends, the air felt thick with tension. "That was inappropriate," Jonah said quietly. "What was inappropriate?" "A photo with a coworker. The way he touched you, the way you let him." I rolled my eyes. "You're being paranoid. Felix is just friendly." "Friendly?" Jonah's jaw tightened. "Is that what we're calling it?" "God, Jonah, this is exactly why we never have fun anymore. You turn everything into some big dramatic thing." I picked up my phone and opened our group chat with my friends and coworkers. The photo Felix had taken was already there, sent from his account. I typed quickly, "Anniversary dinner with my wrinkled prune while the real men know how to treat a lady." The responses came instantly. Marina: "Girl, yes. You deserve so much better." Nate: "Felix knows what's up." Carmen: "That dress, though, stunning." Felix: "Always a pleasure, beautiful." I showed Jonah the photo, conveniently covering the group chat. "See? Just a nice picture." But his face had gone completely still. "You're texting about me right now, aren't you?" "Don't be ridiculous." "Show me." "No." I put the phone in my purse. "You don't get to police my conversations." The rest of dinner passed in uncomfortable silence. Jonah paid the check without a word, and we drove home with the radio filling the space between us. I told myself he was being oversensitive, that I deserved to feel appreciated. But something in his expression that night, a kind of quiet resignation, should have warned me. Instead, I went to bed thinking about Felix's arm around my waist and the way he'd called me beautiful. The next morning at the non-profit's downtown office, I was practically glowing. My desk faced the main corridor, so everyone could see me in my fitted blazer and the confidence that came from feeling desired again. "Someone's in a good mood," said Nate Chen, our social media coordinator, perching on my desk. "That photo from last night is getting some serious attention." I pulled up Instagram on my computer. The picture Felix had posted had dozens of likes and comments. I looked radiant next to him, while in the background, you could just make out Jonah's profile. Serious, unsmiling, older looking. "Felix knows how to make a woman feel special," I said, loud enough for nearby coworkers to hear. "Unlike some people," Marina added, appearing with coffee. She'd been my best friend since college and had never liked Jonah. "Honestly, Lise, you've been glowing since you started working with Felix. It's like you remembered you're a catch." The group chat had been buzzing all morning. Felix: "Coffee later? I have some ideas for the gala." Nate: "The power couple we didn't know we needed." Marina: "When are you going to admit you two have chemistry?" Me: "Just friends, but at least someone appreciates me." Carmen: "Your husband looked pressed in that photo, lol." Me: "He's just mad I look happy. Some people can't handle when others shine." What I didn't know was that Carmen had screenshotted our conversation. What I really didn't know was that her boyfriend worked at Jonah's school. By lunch, Felix and I were walking to the trendy sandwich place down the street, discussing the upcoming donor gala. He had this way of listening that made you feel like the most interesting person in the world. "You know," he said, holding the door open for me, "you light up every room you enter. Does your husband tell you that?" I laughed, but it came out bitter. "Jonah tells me when the electric bill is due and asks if I remembered to buy milk." "That's a crime. You're extraordinary, Lysandra." Back at the office, I posted a photo of our lunch, Felix's hand reaching across the table toward mine, both of us laughing. The caption read, "When someone actually gets your vision." The group chat exploded. Nate: "Okay, this is definitely not just work friends." Marina: "Get it, girl." Felix: "Best lunch partner in the city." Me: "Finally someone who appreciates good company." Carmen: "Your husband's going to see this." Me: "So, I'm allowed to have friends. If he can't handle me being happy, that's his problem." I was riding high on the attention, the validation, the feeling of being wanted. Every like, every comment, every message made me feel more alive than I had in years. That evening, Jonah was quieter than usual during dinner. Our 7-year-old daughter Maya kept glancing between us, her sensitive nature picking up on the tension. "Daddy, why don't you smile in Mummy's pictures?" she asked innocently. Jonah's fork paused halfway to his mouth. "What pictures, sweetheart?" "The ones on her phone. You always look sad." I felt heat rise in my cheeks. "Maya, eat your vegetables." After Maya went to bed, Jonah approached me in the kitchen where I was loading the dishwasher. "We need to talk." "About what?" He pulled out his phone and showed me Carmen's boyfriend's Facebook post, a screenshot of our group chat, complete with my wrinkled prune comment and all the responses. My stomach dropped. "Where did you get this?" "Does it matter? Half the school has seen it by now." His voice was steady, but I could see the hurt in his eyes. "A wrinkled prune, Lysandra? Really?" "It was just a joke. You're taking it too seriously." "A joke? You publicly humiliated me to get attention from another man." "That's not what happened." "Then explain what happened. Explain the photos, the comments, the way you've been acting." I crossed my arms. "I've been acting happy. I'm sorry if that's such a foreign concept to you. Happy or performing?" The question hit too close to home. I don't have to justify having friends to you. Friends don't touch their married coworkers like that. And wives don't call their husbands' names in group chats for other men to see. I turned back to the dishes. "Maybe if you gave me a reason to say nice things about you, I would." The silence that followed was deafening. When I finally turned around, Jonah was gone. I found him in his home office, writing in a notebook I'd never seen before. "What's that?" He closed it calmly. "Notes." "Notes about what?" "Household things, schedules, Bank information. Something cold settled in my stomach, but I pushed it away. Jonah was methodical about everything. Of course he kept notes. That night, the group chat lit up again. Carmen. Girl, I'm so sorry. Jake saw it and shared it before I could stop him. Me. It's fine. Maybe Jonah needed to see that other people value me. Marina. You deserve someone who worships the ground you walk on. Felix. Everything okay? You seemed upset when you left today. Me. Just dealing with insecurity at home. Some people can't handle when their partner shines. Nate. His loss. You're a queen. I fell asleep feeling vindicated, surrounded by people who understood me. But somewhere in the back of my mind, I kept thinking about that notebook and the careful way Jonah had closed it. The annual donor gala was our non-profit's biggest event of the year, held at an upscale rooftop venue with a stunning view of the city skyline. I'd spent weeks planning every detail, and tonight I looked absolutely perfect in a red dress that hugged every curve. Felix found me immediately when he arrived, looking devastatingly handsome in his tailored suit. You've outdone yourself, he said, his eyes traveling appreciatively over my dress. This whole event is incredible, but you're the real showstopper. I felt that familiar rush of pleasure. You clean up pretty well yourself. Jonah had come separately after Maya's school play, looking uncomfortable in his rarely worn suit. He found a spot near the bar and stayed there, nursing a single beer and watching the crowd with those careful, observant eyes. Is that your husband? Felix asked, following my gaze. Unfortunately. He doesn't seem very supportive. Jonah doesn't do parties, or fun, or anything that might require actual enthusiasm. As the evening progressed, Felix and I worked the room together. We were a perfect team. I knew everyone's names and donation history, while he had the charisma to make them feel special. Several people commented on our partnership, and I didn't bother to correct them. During the silent auction, Felix bid on a weekend getaway package. Planning something special, I teased. Maybe. Depends on if I can find the right travel companion. The way he looked at me made my pulse quicken. Across the room, I caught Jonah watching us, his expression unreadable. When it came time for speeches, I took the microphone with confidence. The crowd quieted as I began thanking our donors and sponsors. This organization succeeds because of trust, I said, my voice carrying across the rooftop. Trust between our team, trust with our donors, and trust in our mission. When people believe in you, magic happens. I could see Felix near the front, smiling up at me with obvious admiration. On impulse, I gestured for him to join me. I have to give special recognition to Felix Marrow, whose innovative ideas and unwavering support have transformed our outreach programs. Felix bounded onto the small stage, and without thinking, I leaned into him as the photographer snapped pictures. His arm went around my waist, his hand resting possessively on my hip. Thank you, Lysandra, he said into the microphone. Working with someone this brilliant and beautiful has been the highlight of my year. The crowd applauded, and I felt like I was glowing. This was what partnership looked like. This was what appreciation felt like. I glanced toward the bar where Jonah had been standing, but he was gone. Later, as the event wound down, I was riding high on compliments and champagne. The group chat was already buzzing. Nate. Power couple alert. That speech was everything. Marina. You two looked so natural together. Carmen. The chemistry was obvious to everyone. Felix. Best night of my life. You're incredible, Lys. Me. Finally working with someone who gets it. I posted several photos from the event, including the one of Felix and me on stage. We looked perfect together, successful, attractive, powerful. The next morning, I woke up to discover that Nate had posted video clips from the event on the non-profit's social media accounts. The footage of Felix and me during the speech had been viewed hundreds of times overnight. Did you see this? Marina texted, along with a link to a local blog that had picked up the story. Local non-profit's dynamic duo steals the show at annual gala. I shared it immediately in our group chat. Me, we're famous. Felix, you deserve all the recognition in the world. Nate, the comments are so good, everyone's talking about your partnership. Carmen, girl, you're glowing in these photos. Me, what can I say? Success looks good on me. What I didn't see were the other comments starting to appear on the blog post and social media. People who knew Jonah, who had seen the earlier screenshots, who were putting pieces together. That evening, Maya was unusually quiet during dinner. "Mummy, why is Daddy sleeping in the guest room?" I glanced at Jonah, who was methodically eating his pasta without looking up. "Daddy's just giving Mommy some space while she's busy with work." "Are you getting divorced like Emma's parents?" "Of course not, sweetheart, don't be silly." But Maya's question hung in the air. After she went to bed, I confronted Jonah in the guest room. "You're being dramatic. It was a work event." He looked up from his laptop, where he appeared to be organizing files. "I watched the video, Lysandra. Everyone did." "So? I gave a good speech." "You gave a speech about trust while your boyfriend had his hands all over you." "He's not my boyfriend." "Then what is he?" I didn't have an answer that wouldn't make things worse. "You're making this into something it's not," I said finally. Jonah closed the laptop and looked at me with an expression I'd never seen before. Not anger, not hurt, but something colder. "I've been documenting everything, Lise. The messages, the photos, the public humiliation, all of it." "Documenting what? For what? For when you finally push this too far?" A chill ran down my spine, but I forced myself to laugh. "You're being paranoid." "Am I? Because from where I'm sitting, my wife is having an emotional affair that's become physical in public, and she's so caught up in the attention that she doesn't care who gets hurt. Nothing physical has happened. Yet." That single word hung between us like a challenge. I wanted to deny it, to reassure him, but the truth was that I'd been thinking about Felix constantly. The way he looked at me, touched me, made me feel alive. "Maybe if you made me feel half as appreciated as Felix does, we wouldn't be having this conversation." Jonah's laugh was bitter. "There it is, the truth." I left him there with his laptop and his files, telling myself he was overreacting. But as I lay in our empty bed, I couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had shifted. The group chat was still active. "Felix, can't stop thinking about tonight. You were magnificent." Me, "You weren't so bad yourself." Marina, "When are you going to admit you two are perfect together?" Me, "Some people are just meant to be partners." Felix, "In all the ways that matter." I fell asleep smiling, but somewhere in the house I could hear the quiet hum of the printer running. The weeks following the gala felt like living in two different worlds. At work, I was riding high on the success and the constant attention from Felix. At home, Jonah had become a ghost, polite, distant, methodically going through the motions of family life, while keeping careful notes about everything. I started noticing small changes. He'd begun printing and filing receipts that he used to just throw in a drawer. His desk, usually cluttered with lesson plans and student papers, was now organized with labeled folders. He'd installed a small filing cabinet in his office and kept it locked. "Spring cleaning?" I asked one morning, finding him sorting through bank statements. "Something like that." "You're being weird, Jonah." He looked up at me with those calm, assessing eyes. "Am I?" Felix and I had grown bolder. We took lunch breaks that stretched into 2 hours, attended strategy meetings that were really just excuses to be alone together, and the group chat had become our constant source of validation. Me. Another amazing brainstorm session with Felix. So grateful to work with someone who actually listens. Felix. Best part of every day is collaborating with this brilliant woman. Nate. You two need to just admit you're soulmates already. Marina. The way he looks at you in these photos. Girl. Carmen. Your husband must be blind not to see what he has. Me. Some people take diamonds for granted. The comments were getting more explicit, more obviously about our connection. I told myself it was harmless flirting, but the truth was that I was falling for Felix hard. He made me feel like the most important person in the world. One afternoon, he asked me to stay late to review donor files. We were alone in the office, sitting close together at my desk, when he reached over and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. "Lysandra," he said softly, "you know how I feel about you." My heart was racing. "Felix, you deserve so much more than what you have at home." Before I could respond, his phone buzzed with a text. He glanced at it and his expression changed slightly. "Everything okay?" "Yeah, just someone shared another screenshot from our group chat. It's making the rounds." A cold feeling settled in my stomach. "What do you mean, making the rounds?" "Nothing serious, just people talking." But I could see he was uncomfortable. For the first time, it occurred to me that our private conversations weren't as private as I'd thought. That night, Maya was working on a school project about families. She'd drawn a picture of our house with 3 figures, herself in the middle, me on one side, and a tiny figure labeled Daddy in the corner. "Why is Daddy so small?" I asked, trying to keep my voice light. "Because he's always sad now, and he stays in the little room." Guilt twisted in my chest, but I pushed it away. This wasn't my fault. Jonah was the one choosing to be distant and cold. "Daddy's just busy with work, sweetheart." But Maya's innocent observation stuck with me. When had Jonah started looking so diminished? The next day brought a new crisis. Carmen pulled me aside at work, looking uncomfortable. "Liz, I need to tell you something. My boyfriend's been showing those screenshots to people at Jonah's school. I tried to stop him, but..." "But what?" "People are talking. About you and Felix. About the things you've been saying about Jonah." Heat flooded my face. "What people?" "Teachers, parents, administrators. Someone created a group chat just to share the screenshots. They're calling it the Lysandra Show." I felt like I might throw up. "How many people?" "I don't know. Dozens, maybe more." That evening, I tried to act normal during dinner, but I kept catching Jonah watching me, with that same calm, evaluating expression. After Maya went to bed, he approached me in the living room. "I had an interesting day," he said, settling into the chair across from me. "Oh?" "3 different people sent me screenshots of your group chat conversations. Apparently, there's quite an audience for your commentary on our marriage." I felt trapped. "Jonah, I can explain." "Can you? Because from what I'm seeing, you've turned our private life into entertainment for your coworkers and friends." "It's not like that." "Then what is it like? Help me understand how calling me a wrinkled prune and talking about how Felix appreciates you is supposed to make me feel." The words hung in the air between us. I wanted to apologize, to take it all back, but my pride wouldn't let me. "Maybe if you gave me something positive to say about you, I would." Something flickered across his face. Hurt, disappointment, maybe even pity. "I see." He stood up. "For what it's worth, Lise, I hope he makes you happy. I really do." "What's that supposed to mean?" But he was already walking away. I heard his office door close, followed by the familiar sounds of papers being shuffled and filed. Later that night, I found myself scrolling through months of group chat messages, seeing them through new eyes. The progression was obvious. Innocent complaints about Jonah had evolved into cruel mockery, while my praise for Felix had become increasingly intimate. My phone buzzed with a calendar notification. "Meeting personal tomorrow, 4:05 p.m. I hadn't created that appointment. When I tried to edit it, I found I didn't have permission to change it. The group chat was quieter than usual. "Felix, heard there might be some drama brewing. Everything okay?" Me, "Just people being nosy, nothing I can't handle." Marina, "You don't owe anyone explanations for being happy." Nate, "Haters gonna hate. You're living your best life." But I could sense a shift. Even my closest allies seemed less enthusiastic, more cautious. That night, I lay awake listening to the sounds from Jonah's office, the printer running, papers being organized, the quiet click of computer keys. Whatever he was preparing, it was thorough and methodical, just like everything else he did. I told myself I wasn't worried. After all, what could he really do? The family dinner at the riverfront restaurant was supposed to be a peace offering. My idea to show everyone that we were fine, that the gossip and screenshots were just noise. I'd invited my parents, Jonah's Aunt Lydia, and even Maya, thinking that a public setting would keep things civil. I was wrong. "You look lovely, dear," my mother Rosa said as we were seated, but I could hear the strain in her voice. She'd been getting calls from friends who'd seen the viral posts. "Thank you, Mum. I've been taking better care of myself lately." Jonah's Aunt Lydia, a traditional woman who'd helped raise him after his parents died, was less diplomatic. "Taking care of yourself or taking care of your image?" she asked pointedly. "Lydia," my father Paul warned quietly. "No, it's fine," I said, forcing a smile. "I believe in living authentically." Authentically. Aunt Lydia's tone was ice cold. "Is that what we're calling public humiliation now?" Maya looked up from her coloring book, sensing the tension. "What's public humiliation?" "Nothing, sweetheart," Jonah said gently, speaking for the first time since we'd arrived. "Just grown-up talk." But Aunt Lydia wasn't finished. "You know, dear, I've seen the photos, the videos, the things you've been saying about my nephew." Heat flooded my face. "I don't know what you think you've seen. I've seen a wife who's forgotten what respect means, what loyalty means." "Lydia, please," my mother interjected. "No, Rosa, someone needs to say it. This girl has been parading around with another man, mocking her husband publicly, and acting like it's some kind of empowerment." I stood up abruptly. "I don't have to listen to this." "Sit down," Aunt Lydia commanded, and something in her voice made me obey. "You want to talk about authenticity? Let's be authentic. You're having an affair, emotional if not physical, and you're too proud to admit it." "That's not true." "Then explain the photos. Explain the group chat messages. Explain why my nephew looks like a broken man while you're glowing with happiness about another man's attention." I glanced around the table. My parents looked mortified. Maya was staring at me with wide, confused eyes. And Jonah was watching me with that same calm, evaluating expression. "I'm not having an affair," I said weakly. "Maybe not physically," Aunt Lydia conceded, "but you've been unfaithful in every other way that matters. I deserve to be happy." "At whose expense? Your daughter's, your husband's, your own dignity?" The words hit like physical blows. I wanted to argue, to defend myself, but suddenly I was seeing the situation through their eyes, through Maya's eyes, through the eyes of everyone who'd been watching my performance. "Sometimes," my mother said quietly, "being right isn't worth being alone." The rest of the dinner passed in uncomfortable silence. Maya barely ate, too upset by the tension. My father kept checking his phone, clearly wanting to be anywhere else. And Jonah remained perfectly composed, cutting his food methodically and responding politely when spoken to. When we got home, I found a manila folder on the kitchen counter with my name on it. Inside were printed screenshots of every group chat conversation from the past 3 months, organized chronologically, photos from social media, calendar invitations, even receipts from my lunches with Felix. "What is this?" I called out, but Jonah was already in his office. I followed him, clutching the folder. "What is this supposed to prove?" He looked up from his computer, where he appeared to be uploading files to some kind of cloud storage. "It's evidence, Lysandra. Documentation of choices you made." "Evidence for what?" "For when this ends. And it is going to end." "Are you threatening me?" "I'm preparing for reality. You've made your choice. You've been making it publicly for months. I'm just making sure there's a record." I stared at the organized files, the labeled folders, the careful documentation of my every move. "You've been planning this." "I've been protecting myself And Maya. From what? From the fallout of your decisions. My phone buzzed with another calendar notification. Paper drop 4:05 p.m. tomorrow. What happens tomorrow at 4:05? Jonah saved whatever he was working on and closed the laptop. You'll find out. That night, the group chat was unusually quiet. Felix had sent a few messages asking if I was okay, but even he seemed to sense that something had shifted. The viral attention that had felt so validating was now feeling like exposure. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, thinking about Maya's drawing of the tiny, sad daddy figure, about Aunt Lydia's words, about the careful way Jonah had been documenting everything. For the first time in months, I wondered if I'd made a terrible mistake. But it was too late to wonder. Tomorrow at 4:05, I was going to find out exactly how methodical and prepared my quiet, boring husband really was. I spent the morning trying to act normal, but the calendar notification kept appearing on my phone every hour. Paper drop, 4:05 p.m. I'd tried to delete it, but it was locked somehow, created from an administrative account I couldn't access. Felix had texted asking if I wanted to meet for coffee, but for the first time in months, I declined. Something about yesterday's dinner had shaken me, and I needed time to think. At 3:30, I decided to take control of the situation. If Jonah was planning some kind of dramatic confrontation, I would meet it head-on. I drove to the courthouse downtown, thinking maybe I could catch him there and we could talk privately before whatever he had planned. I was surprised to see Felix waiting by the steps. "What are you doing here?" I asked. "You seemed upset yesterday. I thought maybe we could grab that coffee after all." He looked as handsome as ever in his fitted jacket, but something felt different. The excitement I usually felt around him was muted by anxiety. "Felix, I need to ask you something. Have you been serious about us? About what this is?" His smile faltered slightly. "Of course. Why would you ask that?" "Because my marriage is falling apart, and I need to know if what we have is real, or if I'm just entertainment." Before he could answer, I saw Jonah approaching from across the street. He was carrying a leather briefcase and wearing his most formal suit, the one he'd worn to his job interview, to Maya's school events, to court when we'd bought the house. "Is that your husband?" Felix asked, and I could hear something new in his voice. Uncertainty, maybe even fear. "Yes." "He looks prepared." Jonah walked up to us with that same calm composure he'd maintained for weeks. He nodded politely to Felix, then turned to me. "Lysandra." "Jonah, what is this about?" Instead of answering, he opened his briefcase and pulled out a thick manila envelope. "These are divorce papers," he said simply. "Petition for dissolution of marriage, temporary custody arrangements, and financial disclosures." The words hit me like a physical blow. "You're not serious." "I am. I filed them this morning. You're being served." He handed me the envelope. My hands were shaking as I opened it and saw the official court documents, complete with case numbers and filing stamps. "Jonah, we can work this out. We can go to counseling. We could have done that months ago, before you decided to make our marriage a public joke." Felix stepped forward. "Look, man, I think there's been a misunderstanding." "No misunderstanding." Jonah's voice was perfectly level. "My wife has been having an emotional affair with you while publicly humiliating me. I have documentation of everything, the messages, the photos, the social media posts, the restaurant visits, the late-night texting." He pulled out another folder from his briefcase. It was thick with printed screenshots, receipts, even what looked like phone records. "I've been methodical about this, Lysandra. Every screenshot from your group chat, every photo you posted, every lunch receipt, every calendar appointment, all of it organized, dated, and submitted to my attorney." I stared at the evidence of my own choices laid out so systematically. "You've been spying on me. I've been documenting your public behavior. Everything in here was posted on social media, sent in group chats that included multiple people, or conducted in public spaces. You made these choices visible, Lysandra. I just made sure there was a record. Felix was backing away slowly. I should go. This is between you two. Actually, Jonah said, still in that terrifyingly calm voice, you should know that you're named in the filing as a contributing factor to the marriage breakdown. Your employer might want to review their policies about workplace relationships. Felix's face went pale. You can't do that. I already did. It's all legal and properly documented. I watched Felix practically run down the courthouse steps, and suddenly I understood what my mother had meant about being alone. Jonah, please, think about Maya. I am thinking about Maya. That's why I've requested primary custody. You can't take my daughter from me. I'm not taking her from you, but I am ensuring she has a stable home environment. The court will decide what's in her best interests. I looked down at the papers in my hands, official, legal, final. This is really happening. Yes, it is. What about everything we built together? 7 years of marriage? Jonah's expression softened slightly, and for a moment I saw a glimpse of the man I'd married. You destroyed what we built, Lys. Not all at once, but piece by piece, screenshot by screenshot, humiliation by humiliation. I tried to save it, but you were too busy performing for an audience to notice. I made mistakes, but you made choices, deliberate, public choices, and choices have consequences. He closed his briefcase and started to walk away. Jonah, wait. He turned back one last time. The papers explain everything: custody schedule, financial arrangements, timeline for asset division. My lawyer will be in touch. That's it. That's how it ends. No, Lysandra. This is how it ends. He pulled out his phone and showed me the screen. It was a notification. File upload complete. Evidence package successfully submitted to court system. Every screenshot, every photo, every message, all part of the official record now. The performance is over. I stood on the courthouse steps, holding divorce papers and watching my husband walk away with the dignity I'd spent months trying to destroy. Around me, people were going about their normal lives, having no idea that mine had just imploded. My phone buzzed with group chat notifications. Marina. Girl, are you okay? Someone said they saw you at the courthouse. Nate. Felix just quit his job. What happened? Carmen. The screenshots are everywhere now. Even my mum has seen them. But for the first time in months, I didn't care about the group chat. I didn't care about likes or comments or validation from people who had encouraged me to destroy my marriage for their entertainment. I cared about the little girl at home who had drawn her daddy as tiny and sad, and who was about to learn that sometimes grown-ups make choices that can't be undone. I cared about the man who had loved me enough to try to save our marriage, even while I was publicly humiliating him. Most of all, I cared about the fact that in my quest to feel important and desired, I had lost everything that actually mattered. The courthouse steps were cold beneath my feet as I sat down and read through the divorce papers. Every page was thorough, professional, and heartbreakingly final. Jonah had been preparing for this moment for months, documenting my choices with the same methodical care he brought to everything else. At the bottom of the last page, I found a handwritten note. Lysandra, I hope someday you find the happiness you were looking for. I hope it was worth it. J. I sat there until the sun started to set, holding the papers that represented the end of my marriage and the beginning of consequences I was finally ready to face.